So what is left for us to complete the new contact in Vue is to implement the save button and the retrieval of the information. So the first step is to create our own custom controller, because so far if you click on the new contact and look at the custom controller, it's currently controlled by the UI table view controller, which is the standard library controller. So we need to create our own. So right click on the project name and say new file, and we'll go to the iOS source template, Coca Touch a class, next, and we're gonna subclass the UI table view controller, and we're gonna call this the NewContact table view controller. The language is Swift, and then next, I'm gonna group it with all the other files and create. So that creates a new table view controller. Now, because our table view controller is not is a static cells, not dynamic cells, everything starting from this mark is not needed. So this comment, the number of sections, the number of rows, the self row, all of this is not needed because it will override the fact that we're using static cells. So we can delete all of it except for the navigation. I'm going to use that navigation. So delete from here all the way to right to the mark. So from the mark that says table view data source all the way to the mark that says navigation, delete all of this. We don't need it. I'm also not gonna need the stuff in the view did load, so delete that as well. The template is good, but sometimes it gives you things that you don't need, so we can remove that. Back to the storyboard. Now we connect the table view controller with the new contact through the identity inspector and select the new contact table view controller. And now our controller is connected. To connect this, the text fields as outlets, bring in the assistant editor and select the new contact table view controller. And now we select the text field. Make sure you select the text field, and you can see it from here that it is selecting the text field, not the content view. Or if you're gonna be confused, because remember there are multiple layers, let me take out the project navigator and bring in the content area, the content outliner. There is a table, there is the table view, there is the table view section, the cell, the content view, and now our text field. So want to select the text field, or you can take from the content outliner directly and create an outlet, and we're gonna call this text first name. Connect. And then we want to do the same for the last name, and we call it text last name, and do the same for the email address, and we're gonna connect this as text email address. So now we connected all three of them as texts in here. And finally, I want to add, create a contact attribute so we can communicate the new contact with the list. So I say var and give it the name contact, and the type here will be new contact or contact, or I can initialize with the initial contact and then override. So we'll say contact and then override that with the information from the segue, from the new one. The next step is when. So what I need to do is to take whatever the user will enter in the text field, whatever the user enters in the first name text field, and whatever they enter in the last name or email, wrap it in this new contact, and then in the save, I want to send it to the user. So when the user clicks save, it's going to start a segue. So I have the prepareForSegue, which we used before, that I can use to do some things before the segue actually gets implemented. This way, the contact will be created only in the save segue, not the cancel. But this means I need to identify the segue as well. So before I implement the navigation, or I can actually, before I implement the navigation, let's create the save segue for now. So to do that, I no longer need the assistant editor. So go back to the regular editor, and I'm going to switch from the regular editor to the address book, and I'm going to add the save function. So I'll follow function to handle the save button on the NewContact, not. So I'll say IB action, and then the function, I'm going to call it save. And I am writing quickly because I'm following what I just did in the cancel storyboard segue, and don't need to implement anything here for now. So now I have the segue. Go back to the storyboard, and I want to name that connect the save button to that segue. So select the save button, control to exit, and now you see the save function or the save action. So connect the two to create the save segue. So here is the click on it, and if I go to the identifier, that's my cancel. So click on the other one, and that's the one that go to save, and I'm gonna call this save segue. So I gave it an identifier save segue. This is important because in the new controller, before the segue launch, I want to take the information in the text fields and wrap it in the contact. But I want to do this only in the save, not in the cancel. So now that I named the identifier, I can use the identifier to know exactly when the save segue is launched versus the other segue. So now let's switch to the NewContact and activate the prepareForSegue. So remove the comment from the prepareForSegue here. And here is the prepareForSegue. And I don't want to do anything, although I can get a destination from here and set up everything without really the save function, but I can do that too. But what I'll do here is create, or I already created the contact, so assign the text from the different text fields to the contact attribute. So I'll say contact dot first name, and we'll say text first name dot text. So take the text from the first name text field, assign it to the first name property of the contact, and you'll see how we're gonna use that when we implement the save function in the address book. So contact email address, text email address dot text. So now before the segue reach the address book save function, it will be prepared by assigning the content of the text fields to the contact property. Now let's switch to the address book table view controller to implement the save button. So now once we reach here, we know that the source of this segue, which is the new table view controller, if I take you back to the storyboard, when the user clicks save, this NewContact table view controller will be the source for the segue taking you back to the address book. And that source we know has a contact that has all the new information. So what I need to do is to retrieve that contact and add it to my data source. So we'll do this, get a reference to the source controller of the segue. So I'll say let source equal segue dot source view controller. But this comes back with a generic type, so we want to say this is as new contact table view controller, so that the type is matched to the actual type of the new contact view controller. Then get a reference to the new contact. So I say let new contact equal the source dot contact. That's the property that I just created. Then add the new contact to the source, to the data source. Well, I did not add that function to the data source yet. So let's stop here, switch to the data source. Here's my implementation. And I kind of didn't go back here. So I added the new contact view. I connected the to view. I added the cancel function. And then in the save function, and the save button, I didn't do this. I retrieved the information, created the contact. I need to do the implementing the data source here. So I'll go back to the data source class. I need to add a new contact. So I need to add a function to add a new contact to the list. So function addContact, and this function needs a property, and we can provide a title contact, and then give it a name, new contact, and the type will be contact, and it's not gonna return anything. It has a beginning and an end, and all what it does is add the contact to the list. So the list is contacts dot add object, and use the new contact here as the parameter to add it to the list. So now I have an addContact function in my data source. So I can go to the address book in the save, and now I can add it to the data source. So I can say data source dot addContact, addContact, and then put the new contact in it. It's not picking it up yet. It takes time sometimes. But I need the new contact, but it has a title, so we'll add the title and then new contact. This is the label that we use. Oops, I don't need to do that here. Yeah, sorry. It's no separator, unless I don't need that. Now it's complaining again, missing the arguments. So add the arguments, and then the title need the column. So that's what I missed. So we add it to the new contact. Then we need to refresh the list. So we cause the table view to regenerate itself again. So it picks up on that new contact. So the table view is in the self, which is in my current class, the address book table view controller here. That's the self which reference itself, and then get a reference to the table view. So that's a reference. It's asking me to connect to the function. I just need a reference to the table view, and then I'll say reload data, which reloads all the data back to the table view, or do the refresh. So let's try and see if this will get a new contact in the list. Actually, I forgot to do something. The last thing I need to dismiss, I need to stop that from here. I need to dismiss the table view controller, the controller. I say self.dismiss view controller true, and do nothing when you dismiss. And run. So here is the list, and click to add new and enter a first name. This is the test case that we indicated. You can cancel and go back, which we tested before, or save. And when you save, here you are. Here is the new contact that we added. And you can add another contact. And then here you go. So this completes this iteration. And in the next video, we'll look at clicking on one of the contacts and be able to see the details of that contact, and that will complete the required part of the project, and there will be 2 extra credit components.